My name is Phil Bowers. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Grandstream, and I'm joined by Mary from VoIP Supply. Basically, today we're going to be telling you about what we've been up to over the last 6 to 8 months and what you can expect from Grandstream in the next 2, 3, 4 months. Lots of new things going on here, lots of new products, lots of new product categories, some really exciting stuff. We think we're really bringing some great new products to market that will allow our partners, our resellers, and our users throughout the world to take advantage of some new technologies and be more advanced and be more productive with their with their communications. If at any point in time you have any questions, feel free to type them over to me through the chat in the lower right-hand corner. I have a second computer that I'm monitoring the chat, so any questions, feel free to type them over during the webinar. If there's anything that questions I don't get to, we'll have a question and answer period at the end to answer any questions that I don't get to. Before we go into the actual webinar, I always like to bring in VoIP Supply. Obviously, we're doing this webinar here with VoIP Supply today. VoIP Supply and Grandstream, just to give you a little history, we were founded at right about the same point in time. VoIP Supply was one of our first ever distribution partners anywhere in the world. We've been working with them since, I think, 2003 or 2004. I believe both of our companies were founded in 2002, so we have a long history together. Love working with VoIP Supply. They have some great people over there, very knowledgeable, and not only our products, but how to allow you to get the most of them. So to kind of, before we get going, I want to bring in Mary from VoIP Supply.
Well, thanks, Phil, and I want to also thank Grandstream for co-hosting this webinar with us, and also for everybody who is attending. Phil touched on a couple points. We were founded at around the same time in 2002. We have over 125,000 customers worldwide, and we are headquartered here in Buffalo, New York, but we also recently opened up a West Coast location in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so if you're fearful of us not being able to fulfill your orders because of snow here in Buffalo, you don't have to worry about that anymore because we have this great new sunny location to ship from. A couple other areas that I want to touch upon, which are on the next slide, are some programs that we have available to all of our customers. Phil had already talked about our partnership, and one of the great things about this partnership is that we have quarterly meetings with representatives from Grandstream, and we really work very closely with their new products and what the new latest and greatest things are coming out with. So we have a very knowledgeable team, and we're in constant contact with them. So if you have any questions about Grandstream, you can give any of our sales reps a call, and they will help you out as much as possible. A couple of the other programs that we have available are our VoIP fulfillment. And we've been providing provisioning and fulfillment to VoIP service providers since the beginning. And we do order processing, shipping. We can actually do blind shipping for you, configuration of your hardware, and we can also do marketing for you to help you brand your business. So you can harness all of these resources through us, and you get the viewpoint that you're as big as we are. Another program that we have is our partner program, and with that you'll gain industry aggressive commissions. You'll have access to all of the providers that we work with. You'll be a part of our integrators community, and you also have access to our dedicated support team. So again, that knowledge base with our sales team, you have all of that at your disposal. One other nice program that we've just recently started to promote is our affiliate program. So if you're new to the industry or you're looking to dive into the industry a little bit more, this is a great opportunity for you. And basically it's referring traffic back to us, and you earn a commission if there's a sale made through that order. So it takes about 24 to 48 hours for the registration process to be finalized, and then once you are finalized, you have access to our full hardware catalog and all the marketing materials that you would need to start that going for yourself. One other program that I'd like to talk about is our Reclaim program. So we purchase gently used VoIP equipment, and you can receive fair market value for that. That hardware goes through a rigorous refurbishing process here in Buffalo, New York. I've seen it myself, and they do a great job. And then what we do with that equipment is we actually resell it through our refresh line. So that's another great resource for you as well to be aware of. The last thing I want to touch upon is that we're not only here to sell you VoIP hardware, but we're here to help educate you about VoIP itself. So, and I've mentioned this before, but our sales team has over 10 plus years of experience. They're a great resource. They're super friendly. They come from all walks of life. So if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to give them a call. You can just call our 1-800 number, and one of them will pick up and be happy to help. We also have buyer's guides on the site that are free for you to download at any point in time. And again, if you're reading through those and you have any questions, just give us a call. Like everybody else, we're also on social media. Our Twitter handle is @VoIP Supply. We're always posting industry news there. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Google+. So if you have any questions about any of the programs that I listed, we can definitely send you more information once the webinar is over. But let's get to the reason why we're all here. So take it away, Phil.
All right, thanks, Mary. You know, to wrap up that, and as we both mentioned, you know, we've been partners for such a long time, have such a close relationship, so I always definitely recommend VoIP Supply for any of your Grandstream needs. So without further ado, let's get going. I always like to start off webinars by just kind of giving you a little bit of a brief history and a brief introduction into Grandstream for those of you that might not be all that familiar with us, or maybe you're new to Grandstream. So we were founded back in 2002. Grandstream is truly one of the original SIP manufacturers. We were one of the first companies in the world making hardware devices that supported open source SIP. We started back in 2002, 2003 with 1- and 2-line analog telephone adapters, and as well as 1- and 2-line IP phones. And over the last 15 years, we'll be celebrating our 15th anniversary next year in 2017. Over the last 15 years, we have really grown into becoming a full business communication solutions provider. Everything on the hardware, and now even, as I'll tell you about in a second, a little bit on the software side, everything you're going to need to install, to manage, to create a unified communications, telephony, video surveillance, video conferencing, etc. network for any business. Everything from your back-end PBXs, ATAs, voice gateways, to your IP phones. We have a whole line of IP phones, small business, enterprise. Soon we'll have some mid-range options, which I think we're actually going to be telling you about here today. IP deck phones, our Android IP video phones. Obviously, we also have a full line of video surveillance equipment as well, cameras, encoders, decoders, network video recorders. And we also have now a full line of video conferencing solutions, which I believe we might be touching on some of that in the webinar. I think the focus today, again, is on most of the new products we've had over the last 6 to 8 months and some of the new stuff that you'll be seeing. So we do primarily serve the small to medium-sized business market. It says consumer markets there. One thing that's not there is we do also serve the enterprise market. We have a variety of products that, small to medium-sized businesses have always been our sweet spot, but we have a great variety of IP phones as well as and a couple of different UCM IP PBX models, as well as our video surveillance, video conferencing equipment that are great for enterprises. We are headquartered here in the United States in Boston, Massachusetts. It's where I'm talking to you from today. For those of you that know Boston, our office is about 2 blocks past Fenway Park on Brookline Avenue in the Fenway area of Boston. So if you're ever in town, you can come see us at 126 Brookline Avenue. We're up on the 3rd floor, just again 2 blocks down from Fenway Park. We have a variety of other offices. I believe it's somewhere between 12 and 13 other offices throughout the world. I would imagine most of you are from North America, and so the other offices other than Boston that would be, good for you to know about are Los Angeles and Dallas. We also have a variety of other offices throughout the world, and those offices just allow us to offer local support in local language in the local time zone, as well as have a variety of stocking locations and warehouses throughout the world. And as I mentioned, we are a full provider of business communication solutions on the hardware side of it. Everything, whether you're looking at telephony, surveillance, video conferencing, audio conferencing, networking with IP PBXs and ATAs. But one thing I do want to point out before we get started is this webinar today is being brought to you and hosted by IP Video Talk. IP Video Talk is Grandstream's own in-house developed cloud video conferencing platform. Basically what it is, and you're seeing a full demonstration of it here today, it is a fully comprehensive web, video, and audio conferencing platform. It allows you to take any meeting hosted on any Grandstream GVC video conferencing device and seamlessly link it up with any other Grandstream GVC through the cloud, while also allowing you to have web users, web attendees, or mobile attendees with our mobile app attend those meetings. Also allows you to hold fully comprehensive web meetings that can be attended by other web users, by mobile users, or by GVC users with a hard video conferencing. So lots of different options there. I like to say it's like a hybrid platform which allows you to do both web conferencing, video conferencing, audio conferencing, and any combination of those three. So that's IP Video Talk. It's, again, every Grandstream GVC device comes with an account for IP Video Talk, and we now also support the ability to hold web meetings. We do require one GVC with an account, but you can go to ipvideotalk.com to get more information on IP Video Talk. So now, let's actually jump into what we're here to talk about today. So we have some newly released products that we're going to touch on, and then we have some upcoming products that we're going to touch on. The newly released products you see here on the screen, we have two new HT800 series analog telephone adapters, the HT802 and the HT812. I'll tell you all about that. The 800 series is a brand new series of ATAs from us. We also have our UCM6200 series, IP PBX, which is basically just it's a new spin-off of the UCM6100 series. However, as you'll find out, it actually offers you all of the same features and functionalities as the UCM6100 series does. We just had to put a different chip in it, so we're calling it a different product with the 6200 series. A couple of minor differences between the 6200 and the 6100 series, and I'll touch on those for you. But just in case, I'm sure somebody's thinking I've deployed a lot of 6100s or I still use them, we will always support them. They will always be supported. The firmware that we will roll out for the 6200s will also work on the 6100s. So the UCM 6100s aren't going anywhere. But we do have this new model with the 6200 series. And then we're also going to touch on some upcoming products. The one on the right is, to me, the really exciting brand new thing we're doing here. You'll see next Tuesday that we are going to release our first ever Wi-Fi product. We're getting into the wireless industry. Next week we'll release our GWN7610. It's our first ever wireless access point. And then throughout the next couple of months, we will build out that GWN series of products to include a variety of other access points, both more basic access points as well as higher end access points. And we will also build it out to include a series of routers. So again, routers ranging from mid-range to basic to high-end routers. And I mentioned earlier, we're also soon coming out with a new set of IP phones, the GXP1700 series. These are mid-range IP phones, and I will break that down for you coming up and kind of tell you what's different between these devices and our current IP phones that allow them to stand out and basically carve their own little niche as mid-range IP phones. So let's start going through those four products. We're going to start out with the HT802 and the HT812. So the first thing I always like to say when we're talking about analog telephone adapters is, and maybe you've heard this or maybe you've come across this in other places, we at Grandstream believe we are the world leader in analog telephone adapters, both in terms of the quality of our devices and in terms of the amount of sales that we do on them. As I mentioned earlier, an ATA was literally the first product that we ever made. We've been making ATAs especially now that Cisco basically stopped making ATAs, We've been making ATAs longer, truly. We've been making them longer than anybody else in the world. We have some deals with some of the biggest and most prominent service providers across the world in different countries throughout the world. And what those relationships allow us to do is that all of our ATAs, before they're rolled out to the public, they are so stringently tested, not only by our own team that's been working on ATAs for 15 years, but by, again, some of these big, very well-known service providers throughout the world who obviously want to make sure that the devices can fully test their testing before they get deployed. So again, we are the world leader in ATAs, both in terms of the quality and in terms of the amount of ATAs that we manufacture. So the HT800 series is a new series of ATAs. Those of you that know our ATAs, I'm sure you're familiar with the HT700 series, the HT500 series, and some of you that have known us for a while may know about the HT400s, the HT200 series. So the HT800 is basically the new family of Grandstream ATAs. The first things that'll jump out to you about these devices, you see the HT802 here, and you see the HT812 on this screen. The first thing that should jump out to you about these devices, and I'll come back to the screen, is the new look and feel of these devices. And it may sound like a simple thing, but it was one of the major reasons why we went back and we redesigned our ATAs. Obviously, a lot of ATAs are being used and deployed by service providers or by end users that aren't, frankly, very technologically savvy, obviously because these devices are usually pretty much always used to maintain use of older analog phones that someone might not want to get out of. And a lot of the service providers that we partner up with were telling us, hey, you know, there's definitely an opportunity to make an ATA that's even easier to install, that's more intuitive, that's easier to troubleshoot, and that's what we got here. We've got color-coded ports, which correspond with the instructions in the quick user guide and the instructions that some of our service provider customers will come out with to make it easier to install. You know, put your Ethernet, for looking at here, put your Ethernet cord into the blue port and put your old analog phone port into the green port, for example. These devices also have LED indicators right on the front of them to indicate to you, just like a router, when you look at it, you can very quickly and easily tell from these indicators if it's powered on, if it's got a phone connection, if it's got a connection to a second SIP account, and if it has an internet connection. And you can tell all of this just by looking at the device. Again, makes it easier to use, easier to troubleshoot, especially for non-technical users. So again, that's the first thing that you'll notice by looking at them is the new look and feel, the newer sleek design, the LED indicators, the color-coded ports. So I go back to the HT800 series. This is, or excuse me, the HT802. This HT802, frankly, is pretty much the new version of our HT702. Very similar, if not identical, in terms of features to the 702. It offers you 2 SIP accounts, 2 FXS ports, supports standard 10, 100 megabit per second speeds. Just like all of our ATAs, all Grandstream ATAs will support your T38 fax, 3-way audio conferencing, wide range of caller ID formats, and a lot more other high-end advanced VoIP features that we build our ATAs to be able to extend to analog phones. A lot of different automated provisioning options, TRO69, XML config. If you're using our UCM series of IP PBXs, you can use the auto discover and zero config feature to provision these devices. And we also have, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later on, our GAPS program, which is Grandstream Automated Provisioning Service. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's a mass provisioning service that we offer directly through Grandstream, directly to our products. And you can use GAPS whether the products are already deployed or if they're just in a warehouse or sitting on your desk somewhere. You'll see on a couple of these slides BroadSoft and Metaswitch logos at the bottom. Some of them will say pending, some of them won't. I like to point out that we put BroadSoft and Metaswitch logos on there just because we find that our partners and our resellers, that those are the 2 major platforms that they work with, and those are the 2 major platforms used by the service providers that our partners or resellers work with. We work with and support and are supported by a lot more soft switch vendors, PBX vendors, service providers, etc. And to get the full list of all of the platforms, all the PBXs, and all the service providers that we are compatible with, you can go to our website and check out the partner section of our website. So that's just to say that these devices will very soon be compatible with BroadSoft, with Metaswitch, and as I mentioned, we obviously also support and work with a long line of other ones. I'd just like to point out that we put BroadSoft and Metaswitch on here just because we find them to be the two most popular. They are by no means the only platforms that we work with. They are just two of the most popular. So now we move up to the HT812, and this is where the 800 series begins to really become different than our previous ATAs. The HT812 is the first Grandstream ATA that we've ever made that has gigabit ports. So it supports up to, again, 1,000 megabit per second speeds to extend those gigabit speeds to the two analog devices that are hooked up to them. Again, the HT812 is the first ATA we've ever made that supports gigabit speeds, that has 2 gigabit ports. The other thing that the HT812 has is a built-in NAT router. The NAT router, again, it's not a wireless router, it's a local wired network router. And we've seen, in the past, it's just really beneficial for a lot of service providers or a lot of users to have one device that can both give them VoIP service and that can also serve as their router. And a lot of service providers really like that as well. Obviously, a lot of installers, resellers, because you can use one device to basically set up 2 different functionalities there. Same features in terms of fax, audio conferencing, other telephony features, support for a wide range of caller ID formats, same mass auto provisioning options as well. So again, the HT812, the big takeaway, first Grandstream ATA with gigabit ports, has 2 gigabit ports, and also has a built-in NAT router. You saw this slide earlier. I didn't point this out. This is in terms of the LED indicators and the colored ports, which again just allow the devices to be very easily set up, installed, troubleshooted, maintained, managed, whatnot. I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is just a longer list of some of those more enhanced telephony features. A lot of things that are, you get used to on the VoIP side of things that aren't traditionally supported natively by analog devices or by analog lines, and our ATAs are able to extend a lot of these features, such as the ability to hold, transfer forward, blind, and attended transfer, call waiting, caller ID, do not disturb, flexible dial plan, multi-language prompts, message waiting indicators, etc. All VoIP features that our ATAs are able to extend to analog devices. Full support for all major voice codecs through these ATAs. One thing that we like to point out is the HT812 supports Opus. Opus is a really popular newer codec that is a very high quality codec that uses very low bandwidth. And frankly, we were some people that were a little surprised that we were able to support Opus on an ATA and extend that to extend Opus quality to analog phones. And I could go on for probably about a half hour in terms of technically how that's done. The answer is yes, we are able to support the more high quality codecs such as Opus and extend those to analog devices. Talked about T38 fax, giving you the ability to, again, take T38 analog fax and create a fax over an IP in which you can then choose to have, especially if you're using our UCM series of IP PBXs, the T38, converting T38 fax to fax over IP gives you the ability to, have faxes automatically emailed out to recipients, give your users the ability to actually send faxes through IP send faxes through an IP connection right from their computer. Again, that's using our UCM series of IP PBXs teamed up with our ATAs, which can offer you the ability to create, so basically take T38 fax and make it fax over IP to integrate with your IP network. The HT812, I talked about this earlier, it's got the built-in NAT router, also has the gigabit ports. Again, it's ideal for service providers to allow them to offer one device for serving and for service and a router capability. And one thing that I will mention is we will soon have an HT814, which is the same, going to be exactly the same as the H12, the HT812, but it will have 4 gigabit ports, whereas the HT812 has 2 gigabit ports. So it'll be able to support up to, I'm getting that mixed up. Not the gigabit ports, but the analog ports. It will have up to 4 analog ports, which will allow you to, like the HT812 has 2 analog ports, allow you to connect 2 or 4 analog devices right to it, and then obviously that gigabit network port as well. Talked about automated provisioning earlier. This is just, again, to touch on it. Lots of different options, AES encryption, syslog, mass provisioning with TRO69, AES encrypted XML files, DHCP, option 66, HTTP, HTTPS for, for the web user interface to provision the devices through the web user interface. And we also support, as you're going to see now. So basically, lots of different ways to provision these devices manually, lots of different options to mass provision a whole group of ATAs. What's not mentioned on here is the zero config and auto discovery feature of our UCM. If you're using our UCM PBX, that device will go out and be able to auto discover these devices, and then we'll be able to zero config, or basically automatically configure as many of them as you want at a time. So the other thing, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, is in terms of provisioning, is our GAPS program, our Grandstream Automatic Provisioning System. You could also say Grandstream Automated Provisioning Service. Either one kind of works. I guess officially it's Grandstream Automatic Provisioning System, or GAPS for short. And basically what this is a mass auto provisioning tool that we have built ourselves in here at Grandstream. It is obviously optimized and made specifically to work with our products. It can mass provision up to, I believe it's almost an endless amount, but up to tens of thousands of Grandstream devices at a time. These and GAPS can work whether the devices are still in VoIP Supply's warehouse, for example. It can work for you if you have the devices all set up already at a deployment, so it can provision devices that are already set up in the field. Lots of different options in terms of how you can do it again. So you can do it before the devices get to you. You can do it while they're deployed. You can have the devices shipped to you. Just connect them all to a network, and we can send a GAP signal to provision them for you. Lots of different options for GAPS. Again, made to work with Grandstream products, allows you to mass provision tens of thousands, at least, devices at a time. Our GAPS service is available through our distribution partners. And we talked about this yesterday. So if you're interested in GAPS, talk to VoIP Supply, and VoIP Supply can then come back and talk to us, and we can get them set up and get you set up with GAPS to, again, another auto mass provisioning option. One thing I'll mention before we move on here, this webinar is being recorded. I am recording it locally here, so we will be able to make it available to everybody. All right, so just to wrap up the HT800s, and I admit I'm taking a little bit longer than I should, so I'll begin to move a little bit quicker so we can get through this, finish this webinar up in about another 15 to 20 minutes. So again, HT812, HT802, the new HT100 series of ATAs from Grandstream, new look, new feel, color-coded ports, LED indicators. The HT812 is the first ATA we've made that supports gigabit ports. You see at the top they both support 2 SIP accounts, and the other difference with the HT812 is it has that built-in NAT router. And as I mentioned, got a little ahead of myself, the HT814 will be coming soon. We should announce this, I would imagine, within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And this is basically the HT812 just with 4 FXS ports and for 4 SIP accounts, whereas the HT812 has 2 FXS ports and support for 2 SIP profiles. Keep an eye out for that. All right, so now we'll move into the UCM6200 series. And just like I mentioned earlier, the UCM6200 series is basically just a new version of the 6100 series. As we go through here you'll see the 6200 series offers the same features, the same functionality, and for the most part, even the exact same user and capacity as the 6100 series, but just for some kind of, background information, the processor, the chip that we were using on the 6100 series is no longer being made, so we had to get a different chip to put into into our UCMs, and thus we had to give it a different name. So that's where the 6200 series came from. Although, as I mentioned, it's the same features, the same functionality, the same user interface. As the 6100 series, as you'll see coming up, there's 2 or 3 things that are different about them, but it's basically exactly the same as the 6100 series. Going forward, the firmware that we come out with for the 6200 series will also work on the 6100 series. So yeah, again, pretty much the same, just the new model of our UCM 60, the new model of our UCM IP PBXs for small to medium-sized businesses. 3 different models offered in the series is 6202, 6204, 6208, and the last number in the model will tell you how many FXO ports the device has. Each device will have 2 FXS ports, offer you the lifeline capability. It says up to 100 concurrent calls and 32 conference attendees. The 6208, and I think I have some slides coming up, the 6208 we've enhanced to be an improvement over the 6108, but the other 2 models will support the exact same amount of concurrent calls as the models that, not that they're taking the place of, but basically the 6102 will support the same amount of concurrent calls, same amount of users as the 6102, and the 6204 will support the same amount of concurrent calls, same amount of users as the 6104. But to take a step back on the UCM series, our UCM series of PBXs has been out on the market for just about, I think it's about 3.5 years now. In that time, it's become one of the leading on-premise IP PBXs in the world. Basically, when we first looked at getting into the IP PBX marketplace, we saw that, PBXs traditionally were designed for enterprises. They were extremely expensive. They were really complicated to use. They were extremely complicated to manage going on an ongoing basis. They were basically made for companies that had huge IT teams and had tens to hundreds of thousands of users. And we saw a whole part of the marketplace, the small to medium-sized business marketplace, was basically being ignored by PBX manufacturers, and that these SMBs would really benefit from having access to all of those high-end enterprise features, not just telephony features, but as you see here on the screen, unified communication features, whether it be voice features, a fully customizable voice network with access to all features. Our UCM PBXs support video. Any device that supports SIP video or H.264 video will be supported by our UCM, whether it be video conferencing, door phones, surveillance cameras, etc. And we also offer a wide variety of different mobility options, not only our soft phone app, but the ability to tap into your UCM remotely to monitor your business, to receive video surveillance feeds remotely, to be able to tap into your call recordings and your CDR remotely. Lots of different options there. So again, the UCM series really was designed and really does a great job at bringing these high-end enterprise-grade features to small to medium-sized businesses without any licensing fees. We don't charge any licensing fees at any point in time. You get access to every feature we can make available to you, and we are constantly adding features and functionality through firmware and software upgrades, and those updates are always free. I will leave this slide up there real fast. This kind of just lists some of the features, both the basic features and the more advanced features that the UCM PBXs offer. You see highlighted in orange there are some new features that we've been able to add to our UCM 6100 and 6200 series throughout the year. Some of those new ones that I'll call out, it now has a setup wizard that will be able to walk you through basically connecting to your network, setting up trunks and routes, and then once the setup wizard happens, you can then go through and have the UCM go through auto discovery and zero config of your endpoints. So now not only do we have basically a zero config wizard to help you set up your endpoints, but we have a setup wizard to help you set up your PBX when you first turn it on. We now support shared SIP accounts, which means you can have the same SIP account on multiple devices. whereas previously, believe it or not, we actually didn't support that. I talked about faxing via the web user interface. You can now do that with our UCM devices, and this is something that can be locked down so that whoever you give it access to, all they can do is send and receive a fax. They can't access any other parts of the UCM interface. Google Calendar integration is a good one. In the conference call scheduler, we now have a scheduling app built into the UCM, which allows you to basically, through the web UI, schedule conference calls with the devices on your network, and that scheduler can be integrated with your Google Calendar. We support Announcement Center now. We have made some CDR improvements, and we also now support WebRTC. Not too many IP PBXs in the world right now support WebRTC, but basically that allows you to put a button somewhere on a website or on anywhere online that can link and call directly into a UCM from the web. Everything, again, on the voice side is fully customizable. We're not giving you access to basic features like other PBX manufacturers do. We give you everything we can give you access to. Call routing, auto attendant, IVR, call queue, call forwarding, call retrieval, ring group, hun group, inbound routes, multiple modes, lots of different things there. These are just the major ones that we call out. Again, that's everything fully customizable. Support for all the major voice codecs, and our UCMs are able to do codec transcoding, which is pretty unique, which basically just means if you're making a call to someone that doesn't support your codec, or someone's making a call to you with an old codec, it's more than likely it's going to be the other way around. If you're calling somebody that doesn't support the codec you're using, the UCM will be able to bridge it together and find a common codec to make the call with. In terms of security, again, it's the 6200 models have a built-in firewall. The 6102 has a built-in firewall. And then pretty much, other than that, the, SRTP TLS encryption is a big one. Your 802.1x network security. All of the web user interfaces, we recommend people access it from HTTPS so that it's secured. Blacklist, whitelist options built into it. And we also, a newer tool we have is a real-time asterisk security monitoring feature. This is something that's just built into the user interface and to the PBX, which basically allows the device to be more proactive in monitoring security threats and to alert you when it recognizes a security threat that may have gotten through the other security protocols that you have in place. In terms of conferencing, the conference bridge, every UCM device supports conference bridges. They all also will offer at least three-way conferencing to all phones, including analog phones connected to it. I believe most of the UCM 6100 series and 6200 series models will offer you 5 conference bridges with up to 32 users per bridge. Our UCM 6510, which is the enterprise-grade IP PBX, which supports 2,000 users and 200 concurrent calls, that supports 8 conference bridges with up to 64 users per bridge. As we mentioned earlier, the UCM has built-in conference call scheduler to reserve, automatically start, and call conference parties, which can also be integrated with your Google Calendar. Call recording, it's got a full call recording functionality built into it. Call recordings will be saved directly via the web user interface. You can also, I believe, configure the web user interface to save those call recordings elsewhere on the network or to an SD card or a USB that you might put into the UCM itself. So yeah, that's what it is. The UCM 6510, the enterprise-grade PBX, directly supports saving calls and call recordings into the built-in memory. But for all the other UCM devices, you can either have it exported to various parts of your network, or you can put in an SD card or a USB slot or a USB drive into the UCM and have it saved onto that device. The setup wizard, I mentioned this earlier, so I'll fly through it. It's 5 steps that as soon as you turn a UCM on for the first time, it will walk you through creating a password, setting up your network settings, creating your time zone, setting up extensions, creating chunks and routes, and then you can go through and use auto discovery and zero config to set up your devices. So not only do we now have a wizard that helps you set up your endpoints, but we have one that will also help you set up your network, your trunks and routes, and basically everything else on your PBX. One thing I didn't mention earlier, these are, again, some of the newer features offered by our, not only the 6200 series, but also all of our UCM models. We now support SIP and SMS messaging through the UCM. Our endpoints support that, and now our UCM PBX supports that. Basically allows you to send basically what are text messages from an IP phone to another IP phone on your network. I talked about sending faxes via the web user interface. Again, a newer feature that we've added within the last year. You can set this up so that somebody can access this feature, a receptionist, a manager, anybody, and that all they can do is send and receive a fax. They wouldn't be able to touch or access or even see any other part of the UCM PBX web user interface. You could set this up so basically right from someone's computer they can send and receive faxes through the UCM interface, and you can lock that interface down so all they can do and all they can see is that fax sending and receiving. These are, I guess, some of the things that I was touching on earlier when I was just going through some of the new things. Inbound route, multiple mode, basically allows you to easily switch between different extensions or activate different users through a customized star code. This is really in case you have, it's great for call centers where you're going to have somebody sit down and they can simply just enter in their star code and it will load their SIP account. Also great for offices which allow employees to move around. Basically, if you want a device to be able to be switched to run a different user's or different employee's SIP account, that's what inbound route multiple mode allows you to do. Multiple devices per registration, again, this is a simple one. It just allows you to put the same extension on multiple devices. Previously, if you were attempting to have the same extension loaded onto 4 different devices, for example, from our UCM PBXs, you had to create extension 100 or 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. And here you can just do extension 100, extension 100, and that one extension can be loaded on multiple devices. So here's the announcement center, which there was a question about and which I knew we were going to come back to. So the announcement center allows users, as it says here, to pre-record and store voice prompts in the UCM with a code associated to it. And then you would use that code and a group number to basically, or when you use that code and a specific group number are dialed to the PBX, the voice prompt that was recorded will be basically sent out and played to all the extensions in that group number after they answer the call. So basically, if this is some options or some ways I've seen this used is, a company may be closing early, or they may just, send out standardized announcements to their employees. You might have a mall that has, or a retail center, a commercial location that has multiple different stores all on the same PBX, and maybe they're closing or maybe there's a security issue. You can have, an announcement recorded and automatically sent out, and as soon as they pick up that call, that announcement will start playing. So that's what we were talking about by the announcement center. Now we're going to wrap up with just our 2 last products we're going to talk about here today. Our new products, our new mid-range IP phones, and our new wireless access points. So I'm going to start off with the wireless access point because, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a brand new product for us. It's a brand new, I'm not going to say it's basically a new expansion of Grandstream to get into an entirely new marketplace. The Wi-Fi marketplace, both routers and access points. And the reason why we're doing this is just the same reason why we've done, we got into video conferencing, the same way we got into video surveillance. It is allowing and empowering our partners, our resellers, and Grandstream users to basically expand their business. If you're a reseller, or if you're a reseller, for example, as of now, you have the ability to do full installations of telephony, unified communications networks, both voice networks and video networks. And obviously, one of the other major things that any business is going to need is a wireless network, especially in today's industry, in today's world. And so we have these great wireless access points that we have spent, honestly, the last 2 or 3 years designing. They are built to really Honestly, they're going to offer you some really high-end functionality, more than what you're going to get from a lot of the really popular names and a lot of really popular brands on the market right now. And we're going to come in at a lower price point than they're going to come in at, while offering more features. And there's one great thing, maybe the best thing about these our access points, the GWN7610 specifically, is that it allows you to create, with just this one device and its user interface, you can create and deploy entire wireless networks. Basically, one GWN7610 can configure, set up, and manage entire wireless networks. You don't need to, in that case, have a router or a separate controller to do it. And I'll come back to that, because I admit that, Wi-Fi, this industry obviously is different than VoIP, so I think a lot of people that are in our basically a lot of the people that we work with, our resellers, that it's a newer product, so obviously a little bit more education needs to go into it. But again, as I said, we really believe we're offering something here that is really going to offer more features, more functionality at a price point that you're not going to find elsewhere on the market. So just to start off with it, we have our GWN7610. This device is currently scheduled to be announced next Tuesday, October 25th. This, again, is a 802.11ac wireless access point. Offers some great features, some great functionality, extremely high network throughput. This device can support up to 1.75 gigabits per second in connection speeds from just one GWN, or from just one access point. It's a dual band router, allows you to offer, multiple networks at either 2.4 or 5 gigahertz using both ends of the Wi-Fi band spectrum. It offers one of the best features about it is it offers 16 SSIDs per device. An SSID is just a Wi-Fi network. So each device can be connected to and offer wireless connection to up to 16 different wireless networks or VPN networks. It can be powered by PoE+, which is great, obviously, if you're, most of the time these APs are connected to switches or PoE switches, which allows the device to be powered that way, 2 gigabit ports, et cetera, et cetera. So what I should have started out with is this. This is what makes the device a little bit easier to understand. Another thing that I mentioned the SSIDs, or the networks. The device also offers it says 150 meters, it's actually 175 meters, that's wrong on the screen. Offers a 175 meter range. Probably should have read this slide through. It says 300 concurrent clients, it's actually 250, so not a huge difference there. So each GWN7610, so each Wi-Fi access point, has a range of up to 175 meters, which is about 2 football fields in any direction from the device. It can support up to 16 different wireless VPN networks. It offers dual band functionality, the ability to offer both 2.4 gigahertz networks and 5 gigahertz networks, and the total there allows the device to support up to 1.75 gigabits per second in upload and download speeds. And it gives you the ability to have up to 250 concurrent clients. So, those are computers or mobile devices or tablets that are connecting to the GWN7610. So again, it's got great range. It supports a lot of different networks per device. Offers you tremendous speeds and dual band networking capability, and gives you the ability to support up to 250 clients within that 175 meter range. And obviously you can deploy multiple of these devices to extend that range, to increase the amount of concurrent clients that they support, to increase the amount of networks that you can offer. So the best thing about this device, in my opinion, is the built-in controller. Just to kind of take a step back, the way that these things work is any access point network or any wireless network, somewhere on the network has a controller. With most other companies, with most other access point manufacturers, that controller is a completely separate device or it is something you have to purchase separately. So again, it requires you to use a separate device that's really not integrated with the solution to manage that solution, and in many cases it requires you to go out and purchase a completely separate device. We have embedded the controller for the GWN7610 for this wireless access point. We have embedded that into the web user interface. So the web user interface basically, well, not basically, it operates as a fully functional wireless network controller. And what that allows you to do is any GWN7610 can be used to provision, configure, and manage entire networks of up to 50 other GWN7610s. You don't have to go touch your router. You don't have to go do any you don't have to download any software. You don't have to learn how to use anything to manage these networks, because you can take any GWN7610, connect it to your network, and then that device can be used to control, manage, and configure up to 50 other GWN7610s on your network. So basically that allows you to set up and manage an AP to be centralized, quick, and easy. This is especially great for existing Wi-Fi network deployments. Or if you already have, an internet network up in your office, which I'm sure every office does, and you just want to add some Wi-Fi access points, in that case, all you would have to do is go basically set up one GWN7610 configure it with your internet network, and then you can use that access point to manage and control up to 50 other access points without having to go touch your router, without having to go touch any other piece of software controller. The one thing this does require, just to get a little bit more technical, and maybe this is a little bit too technical for this webinar, but I'll say it anyway, for the setup, it does require use of a device that has a DHCP server, and the reason for that is because something needs to give that first GWN7610 that you're setting up, something needs to give it an IP address, and then you would use that IP address to log into its web user interface. But all of our UCM6200 series, as well as our UCM6102 and the UCM6510, all have built-in DHCP servers, obviously, as well as most routers. So just to kind of walk you through real quickly how this is set up and why this controller is such a great thing, is it allows you to literally set up up to 50 different GWN7610s to, create a wireless network or extend your wireless network, and allows you to do that in literally 5 steps, and it's all using basically a couple of clicks of the mouse. You can read through it on the right there. First thing you would do is to log into the first GWN7610, and the first thing we like to mention is that the first one you set up will automatically become the master. And the master is the term basically that you use to control, to identify the device that controls all the other devices on the network. We have a setup wizard that as soon as you do that will walk you through, basically set it up as the master provisioning device on your network for you. It will walk you through creating network names and network groups. It'll allow you to create a password and edit your security features. And then once you do that, all you literally do to add other GWN7610s to the same network is plug it into the same network as the master. Go to the web UI, you see the screen there, you'll see it as a discovered device, and you just click add. And it will automatically pair it, provision it, and extend the same networks, the same SSIDs, the same network to that device as the master. And then if you would like, as it notes on the bottom, you can then go through and basically pick and choose, create specific networks that are only offered on certain GWNs, create network groups that are offered on specific groups, or only 1 or 2. Lots of different functionalities there. Basically, you can put any network on any GWN in the network, and you can restrict any GWN from accessing any specific network. So in terms of the deployment scenarios for the GWN7610, it's basically, with the features that it has, honestly, it's a mid-range router. So it's great for office buildings, multiple floor offices, or multiple branch offices, because obviously it gives you the ability to offer the same network across all of your different office locations. Also allows you to share VPNs throughout multiple offices. So, again, here's an example. Small office, probably only need a couple. Put one in the main office, put one in the training room. You can have the same SSIDs and access credentials across all of those devices, or you can have them separate. If you want them to be on a multiple floor office, it's great in a multiple floor offices, many IPs, many different network names, many different network groups. Obviously, the devices can also share the same network group so that when you're walking throughout a huge office building, you don't have to switch network names or switch what network you're on. It will just transition seamlessly from one to the other if it's the same network and the same credentials. And then you get multiple branch offices, the ability, just like I just mentioned, to share networks across all of these, multiple physical geographical locations, or to create different networks for each one, to share VPNs, etc. So that is our GWN7610. I realize that I've frankly been looking at this thing and creating marketing pieces for about the last 2 months, which is why I talked so long about it. But that is GWN7610. It will be announced next week. It is, I promise you, it will be one of the easiest to use yet most powerful wireless access points or wireless transmission devices that you've ever used before, because we designed it to be so. That built-in controller, if you don't have any experience with the Wi-Fi industry, go out and look at how other APs, especially from some major manufacturers, companies like Ubiquiti, go look at how their APs are managed. It's much more complicated. It requires that centralized controller. You can't use one AP to manage other APs or even to see what they're doing. You have to log into each one individually, whereas we basically allow you to have one that can control your whole network. So that's GWN7610. Keep an eye out for that. We will have additional GWN devices over the coming months, which will give you more basic and more high-end routers, more basic and more high-end access points, as well as a full range of routers as well. So the last thing that we're going to cover here today is our new GXP1700 series. It's going to have 3 models within it. You have a GXP1760 here, and you have a GXP1780 and 1782 here. So what these devices are what I would call our first ever mid-range IP phones. In terms of the price they offer and in terms of the functionality they offer, they really fall right in between our GXP1600 series line and our GXP2100 series line. We have our basic IP phones, the 1600s. We have these new mid-range IP phones, which were built for growing businesses with a really attractive design and some of the more advanced features, but not a lot of them, as the mid-range phones. And then you have our GXP2100 series, which are your high-end phones that offer you the color screen, that offer you more line support, gigabit ports, whatnot. So the first thing I mentioned, these devices are designed for growing businesses. We designed these mid-range IP phones to be great for small businesses, for startups, for anyone that's looking to buy a phone that really has a sleek and attractive look and that comes in at a price point they can afford now with the features that they're going to need in the future. That's pretty much the positioning statement for the 1700 series. Again, for growing businesses, it's got the features you need now, it's got the design and the price that you need now with the features that you're going to grow into in the future. So we have a GXP1760 here. This guy supports 6 lines, 3 SIP accounts. It's got, does not have a color screen. It's got your standard monochrome backlit color screen. This device, to introduce some more enterprise-grade features to it, does have 24 digitally programmable BLF speed dial keys. The 3, you're going to get, you see on the screen there, 3 soft keys on either side, or 3 line keys. Those line keys also double as digital BLF or speed dial keys. And so you got 6 on a page, 4 pages for a total of 24 on the 1760. Supports HD audio, has PoE just like all of our other IP phones, EHF, or most of our other IP phones, EHF support for Plantronics headsets, your standard TLS and SRTP encryption technology. The one thing I'll mention about this device is it does have your standard 10100 megabit per second connection port. So it does not have gigabit ports, but it does offer you HD audio, it does offer you the digital BLF speed dial keys, and it offers you, really sleek new design from Grandstream. But obviously leaves out, so it's a little bit more advanced than our 1600s. And again, if you're looking for, more high-end features, you want the color screen operating system, you want Bluetooth, you want gigabit ports, then you would move up to the 2100 series. So that's the 1760. The other two models in the upcoming 1700 series will be the 1780 and the 1782. Both of these devices offer 8 lines and 4 SIP accounts. So again, a little bit more line support and SIP account support that you're going to get from our basic IP phones, the 1600s, but not as much as you're going to get from some of our GXP 2100 series phones. The 1782 has gigabit ports. That's the only difference between these two devices. 1780 has standard 10100 megabit per second ports. 1782 has has gigabit ports. So same size screen across all these devices. Again, it's not a color screen, but it's a monochrome backlit screen. All the 1700 devices support PoE, EHS for electronic headsets, your standard VoIP encryption technology, 5-way conferencing, HD audio, and the 1780, 1782 also support the digital BLF speed dial keys, which is a feature not offered by any of our small business phones. It is offered on a couple of the 2100 series enterprise phones. So 1780, 1782, and the previously mentioned 1760. These are actually currently being tested by our beta club. You can go to the forum section of our website and you can check up on how the beta testing is going, find out what people think about it. OnSIP did a review of this product last week, gave it a really good review. So again, it's a new series of mid-range IP phones. These fall in between our small business phones and our enterprise IP phones, in that they give you basically a great-looking IP phone at a price point that is something that a growing business is going to need to start off with, but it's going to give you a lot of those high-end features that you're going to grow into in the future. There's a question about what do most use for codecs. I'd say that the pretty standard codecs that we see used the most are, 722 is a big one. That's the HD wideband codec. Honestly, I feel like I see them each used pretty much equally. And we'll always recommend G722. Opus, which is a new codec that's Opus is now supported by all of our IP phones, not just the ones I showed you here today. New firmware for our GXP phones makes Opus available on, I believe, all of them. Maybe not the 1600 series, but definitely the 2100 series. And as I mentioned, Opus is a really good new codec that is also used by a lot of mobile clients. It is a really high-quality codec that doesn't use a lot of bandwidth. 722, 723, 729 is another popular one. Trying to think of anything else. I mean, I even see PCMU used. It's, so long story short, I'm always going to recommend the high-quality codecs, G722 and Opus, but there's a lot of other ones you can use. And other than those two, frankly, you're not going to see a huge difference in my experience, between a lot of the other codecs. With the advanced firewall function that I mentioned, would you be able, or would I feel comfortable with the UCM6200 series being on the network edge, not behind the firewall? Absolutely. Absolutely. To be completely honest with you, that's how our entire network of our 3 offices here in the United States, that's how it's set up. We have, I believe it's now probably 6208s, maybe 6204s, that we have basically as our own PBX. We use the firewall functionality within it. We do not have an additional firewall. If you have any more advanced questions on that, I can definitely, in terms of how you set it up to get the most out of the built-in firewall and maybe other security best practice questions, I would actually, in that case, suggest that you go to our technical support ticketing system and submit a ticket and just ask them a question. Hey, I'm looking to set up this network. I want to put the UCM62 whatever on the edge and use the built-in firewall. Is there maybe any specific settings that I can optimize that firewall to work at maximum capacity? But Again, long story short, yes, that's how we use it here. We don't have our UCMs behind firewall. We use the one that's built right into it. Yeah, I see that Mary popped back in. So before we wrap up, I wanted to see if Mary or VoIP Supply has anything that they might want to wrap up with.
I think you covered everything, Phil. Again, we are really excited about offering these new products. We're a direct distributor for Grandstream, so if anybody, again, has any questions that you didn't get answered here that come up over the next couple of weeks, feel free to reach out to us. You can call us at 1-800-398-VoIP, and we'd be happy to answer those questions for you. As Phil mentioned, we also will send out an email and kind of recap some of these questions, but the email will also have the recorded webinar. So if you missed anything, you can catch it then.
Yeah, last couple of questions here that I'll read out loud because there are a couple of good questions. Does the UCM series have a SIP server functionality in them for connecting branch offices? Yes, absolutely. Definitely has that the SIP server functionality built into it. Allows you to peer with multiple offices, no matter pretty much where those offices are located, obviously by just pairing the UCMs together through the internet. Question about a port for PRI. So, to the best of my understanding, our UCMs do not have PRI ports built into them. We have a UCM6510, which is able to support, and I don't know if this helps, is able to support, wow, I'm drawing a blank on the other networks that it's able to support. But check out the UCM6510. It's able to support a couple of different networks, but you all are network types, T1, E1, J1, that's what I was looking for. Our UCM6510 can support E1, T1, or J1 networks. Specifically for PRIs, I'm almost positive that what you would do there is take a PRI gateway and hook that PRI gateway up to our UCM, and that would work. Does your DEX phone have repeaters to extend their range? That's a good question. Currently we do not, but we are actually in the process of creating one. I believe at some point in time in November, you will see that we will announce the beta test of a new DEX repeater. I believe it's going to be called our DP760. It should be available, I would imagine, at the beginning of next year, sometime in the first 2 or 3 months of next year. And that repeater, that device will be able to allow you to basically extend the range. It will also allow you to basically move from one base station to the next to transfer a call as somebody's walking or getting out of the range of one from one base station to another base station. There's also a question about, last question that I got here. I'm looking for a way to play a bell tone on a schedule out to all phones so that a school system can eliminate their bell system. I believe that there is a way that you could do that through our announcement center or some similar functionality to that announcement center. But I would say, I'm not one of our engineers. I would recommend in that case, because it's a specific issue, put in a ticket through our technical support system. Tell them what you're trying to do and what devices you're trying to do it with, and they should be able to tell you, if it's possible, how to do it. All right, so I think that wraps up. That's all the questions we got. Also want to thank VoIP Supply for scheduling, planning, promoting, and basically putting this webinar on. As I mentioned earlier, we have a long relationship with VoIP Supply going back to basically the beginning of both of our companies. Great relationship, and would absolutely recommend VoIP Supply for all of your Grandstream needs. Again, thanks everybody for being with us here today. Hope to see you again soon at another Grandstream VoIP Supply webinar. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
VoIP Supply is a leading internet retailer of voice-over IP hardware with over 125,000 customers worldwide. Click subscribe to stay up to date on the latest from VoIP Supply and VoIP technology. Thanks for watching.